Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, did you know that approximately 2,200 startups were founded in 2020, all amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, to meet new industry demands, many of which were spawned by large enterprises? And as a result of this, these organisations began using digital transformation as a means of survival to accommodate remote working operations. However, rapid-paced deployment of innovative technologies often leaves the door open for potential cyber attacks, such as the recent Parler breach, which further highlights why security must always be top of mind, especially for startups. So, to address this, startup companies must look beyond their internal security teams and leverage external security researchers via things like bug bounties or vulnerability disclosure programs that help identify and disclose vulnerabilities before they can be exploited by those bad actors out there. So, with all this in mind, I've invited Ashish Gupta from Bugcrowd onto the podcast today to explore this topic further. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to San Francisco so we can speak with him now about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Thank you, Neil, for having us on the show. My name is Ashish Gupta and I'm with Bugcrowd. We are a crowdsourced cybersecurity company with the real mission of evening the playing field in the cybersecurity world. And we do this by democratizing access to security and creating a force multiplier, essentially bringing the right skilled resources with a trust pattern, behavior pattern, and expertise pattern that helps our customers find and fix security vulnerabilities faster.
And one of the things I wanted to highlight quite early on in the podcast is Bugcrowd is trusted by more of the Fortune 500 than any other crowdsourced security platform, which is just phenomenal. But can you set the scene and tell the listeners a little bit more about the kind of problems that you're solving for these companies?
Yeah, we're privileged to be working with Fortune 500s and startups and mid-market companies across the board. The real reason behind it is the essence of your question is that all companies are facing three fundamental problems when it comes to cybersecurity. The first one is they don't have access to the right skill resources at the right time. And finding them is super hard. And the last mile problem is something that every company, regardless of size, is dealing with. The second one is there's so many security tools out there. So once you even make a decision on the tool, it's really hard to create interconnectivity between those tools. So you get these islands of information and disjointed workflows, which becomes the third big problem for these companies. So when we talk to our customers, the four things that they want, super simple: reduce their cybersecurity risk, which basically means get to know what kind of bugs that need to be worked on immediately, that contextual intelligence, which is the second big area. And third is, how do they get product out to market, especially with this digital transformation that's happening around the world? How do they get product out to market that is secure? And to that end, with all the tools that they've invested in, how do they get a much better security return on investment across those tools and with other technologies that they're bringing to bear to secure their environment? And Bugcrowd really brings all these things together for our customers, which is one of the reasons we have the privilege of working with these many customers.
And before you came on the podcast today, I read that approximately 2,200 startups were founded in 2020, right amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, to meet new industry demands, many of which were spawned by large enterprises. So I'm curious, as someone working right in the heart of all this, what changes have you observed over the last 12 months?
Yeah, it's an amazingly large number, and I'm not really surprised. I'll tell you this. if you look at the world, it has changed substantially. The amount of digital platforms delivering food has increased. Uber has moved into food delivery, for example. The way we are doing communications has increased from a digital platform point of view. Even my brother-in-law, who's a doctor, has innovated tremendously to create clinics for looking at COVID patients, doing the tests, and now doing vaccines. And they've innovated and done things that would take multiple different years and doing it within weeks, if not days. And the world of digitization and digital transformation has enabled this so that you can start with the basics. How do you give access to remote employees? That was 2 Marches ago, the big question that a lot of customers had. And how do you do this securely? And then about in the June timeframe, Neil, we started seeing that there were all these security initiatives that were stuck for years in major banks and major healthcare organizations, which just got green lighted so that you could enable that digital transformation to drive better business decisions, drive better business processes. So the cloud, mobile environments, IoT predictors built into the day-to-day workforce increase so that this remote workforce had better access, could make better decisions, and do it at the pace that this digital innovation was happening. So we are right in the middle of that. We see that every day. And it's been fantastic to be able to help these startups even become that much more secure.
And as a result of these changes, many organisations began using digital transformation as means of survival to accommodate remote work operations. But can you tell me more about the rapid pace deployment of innovative technologies that often leave the door open for potential cyber attacks? Because that's the flip side of this coin, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, there's a saying in security which says, speed is the enemy of security. While that is a very interesting saying, because, I started off as an engineer and I was trained to write code, but I was never trained on security at that time. And I'm talking 25 years ago. And so my pressure was to get product out to market. But since I didn't know security that well in those days, it was just about getting product out to market. So when my security partners came in and said, you have to do X, Y, and Z, it was always thought of as something that would slow me down. That has absolutely changed in this world today. The development, operations, and security teams are working a lot faster and better together. That collaboration has helped them prioritize specific vulnerabilities and fix them faster. And that's exactly what our platform does, is it brings that right expertise at the right time to enable us to provide the security feedback so the engineering teams can fix things faster. And it doesn't become something as a bolted on security workflow. It is something that's part and parcel of the development, security, and operations processes. That truly is money, both in the world of getting product out to market and also making it that much more secure.
And if we have any startup founders listening, can you tell me more about how startup companies could actually benefit from leveraging external security researchers via things like bug bounties or VDPs to get ahead of those bad actors?
Absolutely. A huge part of our customer base is made up of startups and growing companies, because that same problem set manifests itself in a startup just as it manifests itself in a Fortune 500. Startups are looking for those security expertise. They're looking to get product out to market faster. They're also looking to collaborate between the security and engineering teams. So when you have a bug bounty and VDP program, the fact that you can bring security vulnerabilities and information about potential vulnerabilities and prioritize them, which is something we are known in the industry to do better than anybody else, enables these startups to address those vulnerabilities before their product gets out to market. Because it's super important from a financial risk point of view and a reputational risk point of view for even startups to think about how their environment is that much more secure. We have certain customers, Neil, that are actually using Bugcrowd's bug bounty as a marketing tool within their environment and for their platforms, so that their end customers feel more comfortable that their particular tool or platform has been looked at by our ethical researchers and hackers to enable them to be that much more secure and make the end customer feel that much more secure.
So do you have any examples of how you've helped businesses launch a successful bug bounty program or vulnerability disclosure program, and just to help anyone listening understand how they work?
Yeah, this could be a pretty long podcast if I go through all my examples. We feel that the most important thing is customers need to be able to find vulnerabilities faster and get the information so they can fix vulnerabilities faster. Just to give you an example, we have a major mobility company that started a bug bounty program, and within 2 weeks, we invited not only the right researchers, but within 2 weeks, they found one vulnerability that, in their own words, saved them $57 million in potential risk. Now, how did that happen? They ended up paying that researcher less than $30,000 for that vulnerability. It was the best return on investment that they could have. The way bug bounty programs work is that we at Bugcrowd will first understand the attack surface, the actual digital asset. What is it made up of? What technologies is it running on? What kind of potential risk it could have? Where does it connect to in terms of a website connecting to an IoT device or a mobile device? And all those linkages are tested by a set of experts that we bring on using our crowd match technologies to enable us to get the best kind of security feedback to our customers. What happens generally is that in the first 2 weeks, we find several critical vulnerabilities for our customers. This allows not only the researchers to feel that customers are listening to them because customers will fix those vulnerabilities, but then motivate them to do even more on those assets. And this gamification model makes bug bounty programs and vulnerability disclosure programs that much more beneficial to both the researchers and our customers, which is why we call ourselves the force multiplier of security. Now, bug bounty programs have an incentive that is cash-based. A vulnerability disclosure program is more like a neighborhood watch, where researchers want to make the digitally connected world safer, want to build a reputation of being a security researcher, and come and provide feedback, but there's no reason or thought for them to get a vulnerability disclosure program payout. They look to make the world safer through these VDP programs and that neighborhood watch. And on the bug bounty program, they look to get those incentives to enable them to work even more to find vulnerabilities.
And when I was preparing for today's interview, I was reading about the 10th release of the Vulnerability Rating Taxonomy, VRT. So can you tell the listeners a little bit more about that for anyone that could be unfamiliar with that?
Yeah, the VRT, the Vulnerability Rating Taxonomy, is something we've put together largely to help both our researcher community and our customers set expectations and understand what a bug bounty program will pay out and how to think about that. So if you think about a startup, for example, Neil, they'll say, we want to do a bug bounty program, but how do we set that up? We take all that risk out by bringing them onto our platform, which does all the setup and onboarding and things of those lines. The next question is, how do we create the right incentive models? So the Vulnerability Rating Taxonomy has taken over 10 years of information on our platform in terms of vulnerabilities submitted, the priority of those vulnerabilities, and how customers have incented and paid for those vulnerabilities, and created an open source tool for the whole industry to have, so that you can not only rate each vulnerability from a priority point of view, but then also find out what the expected payout could be from a bug bounty point of view as well. So this becomes a really important tool for the entire industry. And this is one of the reasons we invest in it. And the 10th version, the most recent version being the 10th version, enables the companies that are starting a bug bounty program know what they could be expecting and how much they should be paying, and researchers to know how they should rate the vulnerabilities that they provide and what they should expect from a payout point of view. So that creates a much easier platform for everybody to be able to communicate, collaborate, and make those digital assets safer.
And I think the last 12 months for every employer has been incredibly difficult, and equally for employees who many have been recruited and onboarded into organisations without having met their colleagues in person or their managers in person. And the reason I bring this up is I read that Bugcrowd was recognised in Forbes America's Best Startup Employers 2021 list. So I've got to ask, what is your secret to winning an award like that during a year where so many changes were taking place in the workplace?
Well, we are very honored to be on that list and win that award, and thank the Forbes team and all the judges. We also thank our team, because it really starts with our team and the mission that we have. We are super thankful to Forbes and the team that provided us the opportunity to apply for this award and for us to get this award. But it really starts with the internal team at Bugcrowd and our community. You see, it all begins with the mission. If a team is well aligned on a mission, which I've talked about, is leveling the playing field for all digitally connected assets, all of a sudden, the motivation comes from the vision and the mission, and it enables the team to work that much more collaboratively and successfully. Our business model is truly powered by this idea of diversity and democratization of all innovations, so that cybersecurity becomes a place where not only we bring global diversity, but also global innovation and thought to make the industry that much more secure. We've absolutely focused on our community as a way to proactively develop this diversity, not only in the community, but also in our own company and with our customers. So when you think about diversity of thought, it comes from various ways of being, whether it is gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, or even educational backgrounds. Because everybody has a great idea, and our platform enables that great idea to be made available to our customers. And that brings this mission together that much better. Over the last year, we've done a tremendous amount of work to ensure that our customers and our researchers are comfortable, but really focusing on our employee base to ensure that they understand transparently what's going on, not only in the company, not only within the community, but also outside in the world. We set up several employee research groups, and we've taken this crowdsourced approach that we bring to cybersecurity internally to the company. And having offices in 7 different countries, it makes it that much more important to get this diversity of thought into our own environment. So our employee research groups have enabled us to get that and take in these specific ideas about diversity, inclusivity, equal opportunity, and build that into our day-to-day fabric of working together as a company. And that in our culture has become that much stronger to build a company that can work on the mission while having a great working environment as well. The other thing that our team also built was this whole idea of sharing her empowerment, which is a name she group that was led by internal teams to ensure that people understand the power of diversity and specifically create an environment where women have the ability to contribute and be recognized for all those contributions as well. So tons of great ideas were brought by our team because it's so well aligned to our mission and it's so important to the innovation that we bring to bear in the marketplace as well.
Absolutely love that, especially around the diversity of thought, because it is so important right now. And for anyone listening, whether they be business leaders, tech teams, or decision makers, do you have any tips for anyone listening that might be interested in working with a global network of ethical hackers to help maximize the impact of their security defenses? Is there any big tips that you could leave them with?
Yeah, it's A great question. I'd focus in on a few things. First is the nefarious actors are out there already. They're probably at your doorsteps. So why wouldn't you bring ethical hackers and security researchers to provide you feedback so you can stay a step forward in front of the nefarious actors? Second thing is think about how you can get access to these highly curated security researchers so that you can bring the right expertise to your environment. Platforms like Bugcrowd provide you that opportunity. The third thing is don't make security a bolt-on capability. Think about security-enabled business processes. How do you think about developing secure code? How do you enable your engineering team to learn about developing secure code? How do you give them feedback in a timely manner so that while you've got an engineering team building the code, they get feedback so that they can fix any security vulnerabilities in a timely manner? And then third is don't be afraid of getting the intelligence of the community, the intelligence of our platform, and the intelligence of your internal organization to address security vulnerabilities ahead of products going out to market, because it's just going to make that reputational risk and financial risk that much smaller if you can do that.
That's a beautiful moment to end on today. But before I do let you go, a question I always like to ask my guests is, what song had inspired them in their past, helped them on their career, or helps them get their head in the zone before going on stage, or just reminds you of technology? What would your song be and why?
Can I name a Hindi song, or probably should do an English song? So I grew up in India, and I guess one of the songs that was really important to my being is Eye of the Tiger. You know, growing up as a young kid, I saw Rocky, and the idea of a young man who didn't have that many opportunities gets this great opportunity to fight Apollo Creed, and how he trained with this song, Eye of the Tiger, that catalyzed his focus. And that song has been pretty central to a lot of thinkings that I have. More recently, though, I went to an Imagine Dragons concert with my kids, and Dan Reynolds said something that touched me incredibly, and then right after that we went into the pandemic, so it became such a key point that this song has become one of my favorites, which is Demons. And what Dan Reynolds, the lead singer there at Imagine Dragons, said is, in today's world of mental health and well-being, it's super important to first recognize that we are human. The song talks about the demons inside and the demons outside, but you have to really recognize who you are. And then he talked about this idea of communicating and being open about different mental health challenges so that you can get the community to work together. Now, that resonated tremendously with me because, you know, with the pandemic, this is truly an area we have to help our entire community on. And we as a company build on the community of our researchers, employees, and customers. And the mental health of everybody enables us to be that much more successful. So I would say Eye of the Tiger and Demons from Imagine Dragon definitely have been my go-to songs.
Love that. And I'll be adding both of those to the Tech Talks Daily Spotify playlist as well. Funny you mentioned Eye of the Tiger. Somebody recently mentioned No Easy Way Out from Rocky IV soundtrack as well.
There we go.
Very popular. But before I let you go, can you remind everyone listening of where they can find Bugcrowd online, and also contact your team if they're left with any questions about anything we talked about today?
So we'd love to help you out. Please come visit us at bugcrowd.com. That's bugcrowd.com. And please ask us any questions, because this is a journey that we are on with each one of you.
Well, I love everything that you're doing here, and I love chatting with you today, especially as I think companies are looking to become more proactive than reactive to threats and looking beyond their internal security teams to start leveraging external security researchers via things like bug bounties and VDPs that we've talked about today to help identify and disclose vulnerabilities before they can be exploited by those bad actors. So thank you so much for sharing your story and all about that today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Neil. It's really a pleasure to be on the podcast with you.
What a great conversation and a great guy. Bugcrowd is a crowdsourced security platform, which was one of the first companies to actually embrace and utilize crowdsourced security and cybersecurity researchers as linchpins of its business model. And it was one of the largest bug bounty and vulnerability disclosure companies on the internet. But over to you. Do you have anything to share with me on the bug bounty or vulnerability disclosure programs out there that help identify and disclose vulnerabilities before they can be exploited by bad actors? Remember, I always ask you for your expertise and your insights too. And also remember, every song that the guests mention on this podcast will get added to the Tech Talks Daily Spotify playlist. So email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @NeilCHughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. So I'll be back again tomorrow with another guest already lined up for you and scheduled for release at midnight UK time. But just a big thank you for listening from me, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.